Have you ever dreamed of visiting Ireland? Maybe it's the dramatic cliffs dropping into the Atlantic Ocean, the ancient castles perched on rocky hillsides, the winding country roads lined with stone walls, or maybe you just want to see if Irish pubs really are as good as everyone says they are. Spoiler alert, they are. But here's what nobody tells you. Ireland is one of those places that looks tiny on a map, but for some reason it takes you 6 hours to drive across because every 20 minutes you're pulling over to admire another castle, another beach, another sheep standing in the middle of the road looking at you. If you're planning your very first trip to Ireland, this guide is for you. I'm going to share everything I wish I'd known before visiting, all the tips and tricks from myself and my husband, who is actually from Dublin, lived in Ireland most of his life, from the best time of year to go, how many days you'll really need, where to stay, money saving tips, traveling with kids, and plenty of little things that can make the difference between a stressful vacation and one you'll be thinking about for years. First things first, how long do you need? This is probably the question that gets asked more than any other. Can you see Ireland in 5 days? Sure. Can you experience Ireland in 5 days? Not really. Ireland isn't a country you rush through. Some of the best moments happen when you accidentally take the wrong turn and end up somewhere very unexpected, or when you stop for lunch in a village you've never heard of and you end up talking with the locals for an hour. Believe me, I can talk for a long time. My kids sometimes wish I couldn't. If you only have 5 days, I'd focus on one region instead of trying to circle the entire island. 7 to 10 days gives you a much better balance. You can spend time in Dublin, head west to Galway, explore the Wild Atlantic Way, drive part of the Ring of Kerry or Dingle Peninsula, and still have enough time to slow down occasionally. If you had 2 full weeks, now you're talking. That's when Ireland really starts to reveal itself. When should you visit? Here's some good news. There really isn't a bad time to visit Ireland. There are definitely better times, but every season has something special. Spring is one of Ireland's best kept secrets. The countryside turns unbelievably green, wildflowers begin appearing everywhere, and tourist numbers are still fairly low. You'll often have castles and walking trails much more to yourself than you would in the summer. And the weather? Let's just say bring a rain jacket. Summer is the busiest season, like everywhere else, and for good reason. There's long daylight hours that mean you can still be exploring at 9:30 or even 10 o'clock at night. There was a time when we were there in June, and it was like midnight, and it was still light outside. I was trying to go to sleep, and it was so light outside. So you have plenty of time to explore in the summer. Festivals are happening all over the country. Most attractions are fully open. The downside for that is the higher prices, more people, and popular places like Cliffs of Moher can get very crowded during the middle of the day. My advice is to visit the famous attractions early in the morning or later in the evening whenever possible. Autumn, if I had to choose one season, this might be it. The summer crowds begin to disappear, the weather is often still pleasant, and the countryside is beautiful. Hotels are usually a little cheaper, and you'll find yourself wondering why people don't visit Ireland in September more. Winter has a completely different atmosphere. Stormy coastlines, cozy pubs with roaring fireplaces, Christmas markets, fewer tourists. Some attractions operate on reduced hours and daylight disappears a lot earlier, but if you don't mind unpredictable weather, it can be an incredibly memorable time to visit. I like the snow and I like Christmas, and I just think, awesome. It would be great to be in a cozy little pub or, spending Christmas with my husband's family in Dublin. But at the same time, the weather and the darkness make it hard to get a lot of things done and seen. So just keep that in mind. Let's speak about the weather for a little bit. Yes, it rains in Ireland, but probably not the way you're imagining. Most of the time, it isn't an all-day downpour. Instead, you might get sunshine, then a 5-minute shower, then blue skies, then another shower. It's kind of just unpredictable. Locals have a saying, if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes. Honestly, it's pretty accurate. Don't let the forecast scare you. Some of Ireland's most beautiful scenery actually looks even better with dramatic clouds rolling across the landscape. Just pack accordingly. Now, what should you pack? Layers, lots of layers, even in July. I'm from the South in the United States, and so July, thinking of layers is crazy to me, but Ireland does not get as hot as what we get here normally. I think they're having a heat wave at the moment. But you never know. The weather's so unpredictable. A waterproof jacket should be one of your first things in your suitcase. Rain jacket, rain boots for the kids. Comfortable walking shoes are another must because you do walk a lot, especially like in Dublin. You're going to be walking all over the place. You can take buses. We'll get into that later, but they do a lot more walking than we would probably do here. Many castles involve climbing spiral staircases, which also means proper shoes. And cliff walks, they can be muddy. Historic streets are often uneven stones, so definitely the shoes are important. Should you rent a car? In my opinion, absolutely. Could you explore Ireland using trains and buses? Yes, but having your own car gives you the freedom to stop whenever something catches your eye and also gives you the freedom to travel around easier. And it's harder to get to certain places when you don't have your own car. I'll just say that. Now, I didn't drive. My husband drove because he's from Ireland. He's used to driving on that side of the road. I don't know if I could have driven on the other side of the road and with the roundabouts and all the different, it's just a little bit different. That's just me. I'm sure normal people could figure it out and it'd be just fine. But my husband drove us and it gave us a lot more freedom. Another thing to talk about is the wideness or lack thereof of the roads. Some roads in rural Ireland are barely wide enough for two small cars to pass each other. Stone walls line one side, hedges line the other. And it's a little bit scary. I'm not going to lie. We drove one road and I just thought, oh my gosh, my husband was going so fast. And I was like, oh my gosh, slow down. What if another car? It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Like, I'm not from Ireland. So maybe they all drive like that on those roads. I really don't know. But just if you're not from Ireland, take your time and just watch out for other people. There are pull-offs, places you can kind of move out of the way. So just be mindful of that the roads are kind of narrow in some places, and especially for bigger families that are going to have bigger cars or rent bigger cars, just keep that in mind. Don't spend your entire vacation looking through the windshield. Some of the best memories you'll make in Ireland happen when you actually stop. Walk through that tiny village, visit that castle you hadn't planned on seeing, take the extra 15 minutes to explore the old cemetery beside the church. Order dessert. Listen to the musicians in the pub. Ireland isn't just about famous landmarks. It's about the moments between them, just like everywhere else. It's about the adventure and everything that takes you there and gets you there and all the little things in between. All right, let's start where most people begin their Irish adventure, and that would be Dublin, because you're going to fly into Dublin International Airport, most likely. Now, I'll be honest, Dublin isn't my favorite part of Ireland. I know I can already hear people typing angry comments, but hear me out. Dublin is absolutely worth visiting. It's packed with history, incredible museums, live music, and some fantastic restaurants. But if your dream of Ireland is rolling green hills, dramatic cliffs, quiet villages, and winding country roads, that's coming later. Think of Dublin as your introduction to Ireland, not the whole story. I recommend spending 2 or maybe 3 days here before heading west. So walking is the best way to explore Dublin. One of the best things about Dublin is that many of the major attractions are within walking distance of each other. Leave the rental car parked if you already have it. Trust me, driving through Dublin city center is not something you really want to do as a first timer, and especially if it's your first time driving on the other side of the road. There are buses and their public transport is amazing. We love taking the buses. The kids love taking the buses and going on the top floor of the bus and looking out at everything. So yes, either take the bus or walk. Walking is much less stressful, plus you'll discover little alleyways, cafes, bookstores, and hidden courtyards that you'd never notice from behind the wheel. Let's talk about the most famous neighborhood in Dublin, Temple Bar. If you've looked up Ireland online for more than 5 minutes, you've probably seen it. Colorful buildings, traditional music spilling out of the pubs, crowds filling the street. It's fun, it's lively, and yes, it's also expensive. If it's your first trip, I absolutely think you should walk through Temple Bar. Grab a photo, listen to some live music, enjoy the atmosphere, but here's my advice. Don't assume it's the only place to experience an Irish pub, because it's not. Some of my favorite pubs in Ireland have been in tiny villages where there wasn't a souvenir shop in sight. The music feels more authentic, the conversations lasted longer, and the prices were a whole lot friendlier. So enjoy Temple Bar, just don't stop there. One stop you definitely shouldn't miss is Trinity College. Founded in 1592, it's Ireland's oldest university, and simply walking through the campus feels like stepping back in time. The biggest attraction here is the Book of Kells, an illuminated manuscript created by Celtic monks over 1200 years ago. Even if ancient manuscripts aren't usually your thing, the craftsmanship is remarkable. But honestly, the real showstopper for me is the long room library. Shelves packed with centuries-old books stretched beneath an arched wooden ceiling, and it feels like something straight out of a fantasy movie. If you've ever wanted to pretend you're in Hogwarts, this is probably as close as you're going to get. Dublin Castle. When people hear the words Dublin Castle, they often picture a giant medieval fortress. The reality is a little different. While parts of the site date back centuries, much of what you'll see today reflects later building and additions. Still, it's an important place to visit because it played a central role in British administration in Ireland for hundreds of years. Walking through the castle gives you a better understanding of Ireland's complicated past and how much the country has changed. St. Patrick's Cathedral. Whether you're religious or not, this place is worth visiting. Built in the 1200s, it's the largest cathedral in Ireland. The gardens outside are peaceful, while inside you'll find beautiful stained glass, intricate stonework, and memorials stretching back centuries. It's also closely associated with Jonathan Swift, author of Gulliver's Travels, who served as dean here and is buried inside the cathedral. Phoenix Park. You need a break from the crowds? Head to Phoenix Park. It's one of the largest enclosed city parks in Europe, and it's home to a herd of wild fallow deer that have lived here for centuries. Seeing deer wandering through a city park never really gets old. Just remember, they're still wild animals, admire them from a distance. You also want to stop by Christ Church Cathedral. It was founded in 1030 by a Viking king. This is the oldest cathedral in Dublin and one of the city's most important landmarks. Even before the massive stone building you see today existed, there was a Viking church standing on this very spot. As you step inside, you'll notice the incredible stained glass windows, towering stone arches, and peaceful atmosphere. But what really makes this place special is what's hidden underneath. The crypt is one of the largest medieval crypts in Britain and Ireland, stretching beneath the cathedral for over 200 feet. It's packed with centuries-old treasures, ancient carvings, silver collections, and fascinating artifacts. And then there's probably the strangest exhibit in the entire cathedral, the famous cat and rat. In the 1800s, workers discovered the mummified remains of a cat and rat trapped inside of one of the church's organ pipes. Legend says the cat chased the rat into the pipe, and neither could escape, and both eventually died there. Today, they're preserved and displayed in the crypt, earning the nickname Tom and Jerry. It's weird, slightly creepy, and somehow it's become one of the cathedral's most famous attractions. When you're finished exploring there, just walk next door to Dublinia. This museum brings Viking and medieval Dublin to life in a way that's actually fun. Instead of just looking at artifacts behind glass, you'll walk through full-scale recreations of Viking streets, homes, and busy marketplaces. You can climb aboard a Viking ship, learn what daily life was really like over 1,000 years ago, and even discover some of the less glamorous parts of medieval life, including disease, crime, and sanitation, or the complete lack of it. One of the highlights is climbing the medieval tower, where you'll get fantastic views across Dublin's rooftop. It's a bit of a climb, but the view is absolutely worth it. What to eat? Let's clear something up. Irish food isn't bland. Traditional Irish cooking is simple, hearty, and incredibly comforting. If it's your first trip, here are a few things you should try. A proper Irish breakfast, soda bread with Irish butter, seafood chowder, beef and Guinness stew, fish and chips along the coast, and, if you're feeling adventurous, black pudding. I'm not adventurous. I've never tried it. I know what it is, and it's gross to me. You can look it up yourself and see what it is. My husband loves it. I'm not a fan. And yes, you absolutely need to try Irish butter, Kerry Gold. We actually have it here in the United States, where that's the kind we usually buy anyway at home. But the butter is really good over there. Pub etiquette. So, Irish pubs aren't just places to grab a drink, they're community gathering places. People meet friends, celebrate birthdays, listen to live music, watch sports, or simply enjoy a conversation. If live traditional music starts, take a minute to listen. Some of the best times we had in Ireland were just like sitting at the pub and listening to music, talking to friends. And if someone you don't know starts chatting with you, just chat back. Irish people are generally warm, welcoming, and happy to recommend places that never appear in guidebooks. Sometimes those recommendations end up being the highlight of your trip. Here's a few tips just for Dublin. Wear comfortable shoes. You'll walk a lot more than you expect. Carry a reusable water bottle. Tap water in Ireland is excellent, not like here. Don't try to pack every attraction into one day. Take time to simply wonder. Some of Dublin's best moments aren't on your itinerary. You might discover a street musician who stops you in your tracks, a tiny bookstore filled floor to ceiling with old books, or a quiet park where locals are simply enjoying the afternoon. All right, we've explored Dublin. Now it's time for the Ireland most people picture when they close their eyes. Rolling green hills, ancient castles, tiny villages with brightly painted storefronts, sheep that seem to have zero respect for the traffic laws, and coastlines so dramatic they almost don't look real. This is where Ireland completely won me over. The Wild Atlantic Way. If you only remember one thing from this video, make it this. Drive at least part of the Wild Atlantic Way. Stretching over 1,500 miles along Ireland's west coast, it's one of the longest defined coastal touring routes in the world. You don't have to drive the whole thing. In fact, most first-time visitors won't have enough time. But even spending a few days on this route will show you why so many people fall in love with Ireland. Around nearly every corner, you'll find another beach, a castle ruin, another tiny harbor, or another view that makes you immediately reach for your camera. Just remember, if Google says the drive will take you an hour, add another 30 minutes, not because of traffic, because you will stop a lot. Galway. If Dublin is Ireland's capital, Galway is its personality. The streets are alive with musicians, artists, and cafes. Colorful storefronts line the pedestrian streets. Street performers entertain crowds almost every afternoon during the warmer months, and it's the kind of place where you plan to stay for lunch, then suddenly realize it's dinner time. Walk through the Latin Quarter, browse the small local shops, listen to live music, grab some fish and chips or seafood chowder, and don't rush. Galway is one of those cities that's best enjoyed slowly. Let's talk about one of Ireland's most famous landmarks, the Cliffs of Moher. Pictures don't prepare you, television doesn't prepare you, even drone footage doesn't prepare you. Standing on cliffs that rise more than 700 feet above the Atlantic Ocean while waves crash against the rocks below is something you'll never forget. On a clear day, you can see for miles along Ireland's west coast. If you're lucky enough to visit during golden hour, the entire coastline glows. Here's my biggest tip. Get there early, or stay later in the evening. Midday can be extremely busy, especially during the summer. If the weather allows, walk farther along the cliff trail. Most visitors stay near the main viewing area. The further you walk, the quieter it becomes, and the views just keep getting better. Just remember to stay well back from the cliff edges and follow any safety barriers. The Atlantic is beautiful, but the cliffs deserve respect, especially in windy conditions. Just a short drive from the Cliffs of Moher is one of Ireland's strangest landscapes, the Burren. At first glance, it almost looks like the surface of the moon. Massive limestone slabs stretch across the countryside, broken by deep cracks where wildflowers somehow manage to grow. It's one of the few places in the world where Arctic and Mediterranean plants grow surprisingly close together because of the area's unique conditions. The Burren has also been home to people for thousands of years. As you drive through, you'll pass ancient stone forts, ring forts, and prehistoric tombs that are older than the pyramids of Egypt. Imagine that for a second. You're driving through and casually passing monuments that have stood here for over 5,000 years. That's Ireland. Doolin. After visiting the cliffs, stop in Doolin. It's a tiny village known for traditional Irish music, colorful buildings, and ferries to the Aran Islands. We actually stayed in Doolin when we visited the cliffs of Moher because it's literally right there. If you're looking for an authentic pub experience, this is one of my favorite places. Grab dinner, order seafood if it's available, listen to the musicians gather for an evening session, and don't be surprised if complete strangers start talking to you. It's one of the things I love about Ireland is that people just genuinely enjoy conversation. The Aran Islands. If your schedule allows, take the ferry. Seriously, the Aran Islands feel like stepping back in time. Stone walls divide green fields, Irish Gaelic is still spoken by many residents, horse carts are still a common sight in some areas. Rent a bike when you arrive, it's one of the best ways to explore. The highlight for many visitors is Dun Angus, an ancient stone fort perched dramatically on the edge of a sea cliff. Built more than 2,000 years ago, nobody knows exactly why it was constructed there. Standing near those cliffs with the Atlantic crashing below is one of the most unforgettable experiences in Ireland. The Dingle Peninsula. If someone asked me to recommend one scenic drive in Ireland, this might be it. The Dingle Peninsula somehow packs beaches, mountains, ancient history, colorful villages, and spectacular ocean views into one incredible route. Take your time driving Slieve League Drive. Pull over often. Visit the ancient beehive huts built by early Christian monks. Stop at the overlooks. Watch surfers catching Atlantic waves, and if the weather cooperates, it'll probably become one of your favorite days in Ireland. Inch Beach. One stop many visitors overlook is Inch Beach. This wide stretch of sand has appeared in several films, and on a calm day, it's the perfect place for a walk. You'll often see surfers here year-round. Even if you don't plan on getting in the water, it's worth stopping just to enjoy the scenery. Now we come to another one of Ireland's bucket list drives, the Ring of Kerry. The scenic loop winds through mountains, lakes, forests, charming villages, and dramatic coastline. It's absolutely worth doing. But here's one tip. Drive it clockwise if you're driving yourself. Many of the large tour buses traditionally travel counterclockwise, so going the opposite direction can sometimes make for a more relaxed experience. Again, don't rush. The viewpoints are half the reason you're here. Ross Castle. One castle that's easy to include along the Ring of Kerry is Ross Castle, sitting on the shores of Loch Lane in Killarney National Park. The castle dates back to the 1400s and has one of my favorite local legends. According to tradition, its chieftain O'Donoghue sleeps beneath the lake and rises from the water every 7 years on a magnificent white horse. Legend says that anyone lucky enough to see him will have good fortune. Whether you believe the story or not, it's a beautiful setting. If you're already in Killarney National Park, don't miss Muckross House and Gardens. The estate offers a glimpse into life in Victorian Ireland, while the surrounding park is filled with walking trails, lakes, waterfalls, and some of Ireland's last remaining native woodlands. Keep an eye out for the park's famous red deer. They're descendants of animals that have lived here for centuries. Blarney Castle. Let's be honest, most people come here for one reason, and that's the Blarney Stone. Blarney Castle is located in County Cork. Legend says that if you kiss the stone, you'll receive the gift of gab, basically the ability to charm your way through almost any conversation. I already have that, so I didn't really need to kiss it. Getting there is part of the adventure. You'll climb narrow medieval spiral staircases before leaning backward over the edge of the castle wall while someone holds your legs. It sounds slightly terrifying because it kind of is. My kids tried to do it, and only one of them was able to bravely kiss the stone. I didn't want to kiss the stone because I thought it was nasty. But that's, no judgment if you do it. So even if you don't kiss the castle, don't leave after that part. The castle grounds are incredible. You can explore the peaceful gardens, hidden caves, waterfalls, and poison gardens. Wicklow is nicknamed the Garden of Ireland. It's packed with mountains, waterfalls, ancient ruins, charming villages, scenic drives, and now one of Ireland's newest must-see attractions, the incredible Avondale Skywalk. Let's explore the very best things to do here in Wicklow. First stop has to be Glendalough, and honestly, if Wicklow had a postcard, this would be on it. Founded by St. Kevin in the 6th century, this ancient monastic settlement sits in a valley surrounded by mountains and 2 beautiful lakes. You can wander through the famous Round Tower, explore centuries-old stone churches, and then head out onto one of several hiking trails. If you're short on time, the Upper Lake Loop is absolutely worth it, and if you're looking for more of a challenge, hike up to the Spink Boardwalk for some of the best views in all of Ireland. Next up is one of Wicklow's newest attractions and one you absolutely cannot miss, Behind the Trees at Avondale, often called the Avondale Skywalk. Imagine walking through the forest canopy on a massive elevated boardwalk before climbing a 38-meter viewing tower overlooking the Wicklow Mountains. The views are incredible, but if you're feeling brave, don't take the stairs back down, take the giant spiral slide instead. Yes, adults are absolutely allowed, and yes, it's just as fun as it sounds. If you're chasing iconic scenery, drive the Sally Gap. This road cuts straight through the Wicklow Mountains and feels like something straight out of a fantasy movie. Along the way, you'll pass Loch Tay, often called the Guinness Lake because of its dark water and white sandy shoreline. You can't actually walk down to the lake because it's on private property, but the viewpoint is spectacular and one of the most photographed spots in Ireland. Another must-see is Powerscourt Estate and Gardens. The gardens are consistently ranked among the best in the world, with Italian terraces, Japanese gardens, fountains, hidden pathways, and views stretching across the countryside. Just a few minutes away is Powerscourt Waterfall, Ireland's tallest waterfall. Bring a picnic if the weather cooperates because it's a fantastic place to spend an afternoon. Now, let's talk about food because Wicklow doesn't disappoint. If you're visiting Glendalough, you have to eat at the Wicklow Heather restaurant. It's famous for hearty Irish dishes, homemade brown bread, and incredible desserts. Near Avondale, the Seed Cafe is a great choice for coffee, sandwiches, soups, and pastries after exploring the treetop walk. If you're near Powerscourt, stop into the Strawberry Tree restaurant for a special meal focused on locally sourced Irish ingredients. If you're staying overnight, you got plenty of options for luxury. Powerscourt Hotel is hard to beat with its spa and incredible mountain views. If you want something cozy and authentic, there are dozens of charming bed and breakfasts around Glendalough. Families might enjoy staying near Avondale or Wicklow Town, where you'll be close to several attractions without constantly packing up the car. Next, we're exploring Northern Ireland and County Donegal. I'm including County Donegal with Northern Ireland because it's basically right there. It is not Northern Ireland, it is in the Republic of Ireland. So, Northern Ireland and County Donegal are home to towering sea cliffs, medieval castles perched on the edge of the ocean, one of the most fascinating cities in Europe, wildlife sanctuaries, breathtaking mountain roads, and some of the friendliest people you'll ever meet. So, the first thing you need to know is that going from the Republic of Ireland to Northern Ireland crosses an international border. Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom, while Donegal is in the Republic of Ireland. The good news is crossing the border is incredibly easy. There are usually no checkpoints or passport controls when driving across. You may not even realize you've crossed until you notice the speed limit sign switch from miles per hour to kilometers per hour. Another important thing is to remember money. Northern Ireland uses the British pound. Donegal and the Republic of Ireland use the euro. So if you've been in Ireland and you're heading to Northern Ireland, it will switch from euro to the British pound. Most places accept credit cards, but carrying a little cash in each currency is never a bad idea. So the first place we're going to visit is Belfast. Most visitors either skip Belfast entirely or only spend one night here. This is a mistake. Belfast has completely reinvented itself over the last couple of decades. Today, it's a lively, creative city filled with history, incredible food, beautiful architecture, and enough things to do that you could easily spend 2 or 3 days here. Let's start with the city's biggest attraction, Titanic Belfast. Even if you aren't fascinated by ships, this museum is worth visiting. Built beside the very slipways where the Titanic was constructed, Titanic Belfast tells the entire story from the ship's design and construction to its tragic sinking and lasting legacy. Unlike many museums where you simply walk past display cases, this one is incredibly interactive. You'll ride through a recreated shipyard, walk beneath massive steel beams, experience what life was like for Belfast shipbuilders, and see fascinating artifacts from the Titanic itself. Give yourself at least 2 to 3 hours here. After all that exploring, you're probably ready for food. Head over to St. George's Market. This beautiful Victorian market has been around since the late 1800s and is one of the best places to sample Northern Irish food. Grab a fresh pastry, try an Ulster fry if you're feeling adventurous, pick up local cheeses, handmade chocolates, or fresh seafood. If you've got the kids with you, they'll probably love wandering through the craft stalls while local musicians play live music throughout the market. Just check opening days before you visit because the market isn't open every day of the week. Belfast City Hall. Right in the heart of the city sits Belfast City Hall. It's one of the most beautiful buildings in Northern Ireland, and it's completely free to walk inside. Take a guided tour if you have time, or simply wander through the gardens outside where you'll find memorials, statues, and plenty of places to relax. If you're visiting in the evening, the building lights up beautifully and makes for some fantastic photos. Of course, no visit to Belfast would be complete without learning about its complicated past. The city's famous political murals tell the story of decades of conflict, known as the Troubles. One of the best ways to understand this history is by taking one of Belfast's black cab tours. Local guides, many of whom actually lived through these events, share personal stories while explaining the significance of the murals, the peace walls, and the neighborhoods that were at the center of the conflict. It's educational, emotional, and gives you a much deeper appreciation for Belfast today. Even teenagers usually find this fascinating because it's real history told by people who experienced it firsthand. So, where should you eat in Belfast? For breakfast, stop by Established Coffee for fantastic coffee and pastries. For lunch, you really can't beat St. George's Market, where everyone in the family can pick something different. If you're looking for a memorable dinner, the Muddlers Club is one of Belfast's best restaurants for a special evening, while Moher Seafood Bar is perfect if you want incredibly fresh seafood. And if all you want after a long day is fish and chips, Belfast has plenty of excellent local chip shops that rarely disappoint. Where to stay? If it's your first visit, stay somewhere near the Cathedral Quarter or Titanic Quarter. You'll be within walking distance of many attractions, restaurants, and nightlife, which means less time driving and more time exploring. Families might also appreciate staying just outside the city center, where hotels often offer larger rooms and easier parking. The Causeway coastal route is where you'll completely fall in love with Northern Ireland. Stretching roughly 120 miles between Belfast and Derry, this drive has been called one of the most scenic road trips in the world. Before you even leave the Belfast area, make one quick stop at Carrickfergus Castle. Built over 800 years ago, it's one of the best preserved medieval castles in Ireland. Unlike many castle ruins, this one still has massive stone walls, towers, and rooms you can explore. If you're traveling with kids, this is a fun introduction to Ireland's castles before heading further up the coast. Now it's time to trade the coastline for waterfalls. Glenariff Forest Park is often called the Queen of the Glens, and once you see it, you'll understand why. The park is filled with lush forest, wooden boardwalks, rivers, and several beautiful waterfalls. One of the best walks takes you through a narrow gorge where the sound of rushing water follows you almost the entire way. It's an easy hike for most families and a great chance for kids to burn off some energy before getting back in the car. Bring waterproof shoes or rain boots if it has been raining recently, because parts of the trail can get pretty muddy. Here's one of my favorite hidden gems. Most visitors stay on the main coastal road. Instead, take the detour to Tour Head. The road is narrow, winding, and definitely not for nervous drivers, but the payoff is incredible. On a clear day, you can actually see Scotland across the water. The views of rugged cliffs crashing into the Atlantic are some of the best anywhere on the island. If you're renting a larger camper van or you're uncomfortable driving narrow roads, you may want to skip this section, but if you're in a regular car, it's absolutely worth a detour. Carrick-a-Reid Rope Bridge. Now, for one of Northern Ireland's most famous attractions, Carrick-a-Reid Rope Bridge. Originally built by salmon fishermen more than 250 years ago, the swinging bridge connects the mainland to a tiny rocky island. Don't worry, today's bridge is much sturdier than the original. It's only about 66 feet long, but it hangs nearly 100 feet above the crashing waves below. If you're afraid of heights, well, let's just say you'll know pretty quickly whether this attraction is for you. The crossing itself only takes a minute or two, but the views from both sides are spectacular. If you're traveling with younger children, check the current age and safety requirements before you go. Even if someone in your group decides not to cross, the coastal walk leading up to the bridge is beautiful enough to make the visit worthwhile. Now we've arrived at Northern Ireland's most famous natural attraction, the Giant's Causeway. Made up of around 40,000 interlocking basalt columns, this UNESCO World Heritage Site almost looks like someone carefully stacked giant hexagonal stepping stones into the sea. Scientists will tell you these rocks formed after volcanic eruptions around 60 million years ago. The Irish, however, have a much better story. Legend says that giant Finn McCool built the causeway so he could walk across the sea to Scotland and challenge another giant to a fight. Once you arrive, don't just walk out to the famous stones, snap a photo, and leave. There are several hiking trails above the cliffs that offer breathtaking views looking back toward the coastline. If you have the energy, take the Red Trail for some of the best panoramic views in the entire area. My advice, arrive as early as possible. By mid-morning during summer, this place gets busy. Early mornings and late afternoons offer softer light for photos and far fewer crowds. If I had to choose the single most photogenic castle in Ireland, it might be Dunluce Castle. Perched dramatically on the edge of a cliff, it almost looks like it's about to fall into the sea. And parts of the castle actually did collapse during a violent storm hundreds of years ago, taking part of the kitchen with it. Today you can explore the ruins while looking out across the Atlantic, and every angle somehow seems even more beautiful than the last. We enjoyed walking around and checking out the ruins, and the kids really enjoyed it here. It's definitely kid-friendly, and they enjoyed it just as much as we did, so it was really a great stop. One of my favorite places for lunch is the Fullerton Arms in Ballintoy, known for hearty Irish meals and a cozy atmosphere. Near the Giant's Causeway, the Nook is a popular stop for soups, sandwiches, and homemade desserts. And if you're looking for seafood, there are plenty of fantastic options in Bushmills and nearby Port Rush. And don't pass up a local bakery if you see one. Fresh scones and sausage rolls are practically a requirement on an Irish road trip. Before crossing the border into Donegal, spend at least half a day exploring Derry or Londonderry, depending on who you ask. If you ask my husband, who is Irish, he's going to tell you it's just Derry, it's not Londonderry. You'll hear both names used, and locals often have strong opinions about which one they prefer. When in doubt, many visitors simply call it Derry. This is one of Europe's few completely intact walled cities, and walking these 400-year-old walls is one of the best ways to experience it. The elevated walkway circles the entire historic center, giving you views of church spires, colorful streets, and the modern city growing beyond the old defenses. As you walk, you'll pass enormous cannons, watchtowers, and gates that have witnessed centuries of Irish history. One of the city's most recognizable landmarks is the elegant Peace Bridge. Stretching across the River Foyle, it connects communities that were once deeply divided during the Troubles. Today it has become a symbol of how far the city has come. Take a walk across it at sunset if you can. The reflections on the river are beautiful, and it's one of the best photo spots in Derry. Located just outside the city's historic walls, the Bogside became the center of the civil rights movement in Northern Ireland during the late 1960s and the site of some of the most important events of the Troubles. Today, it's a place to learn, reflect, and better understand the city's past. One of the biggest highlights is the world-famous People's Gallery. These massive murals tell the story of the community through powerful artwork, honoring key moments and the people who lived through them. Just a short walk away is the Free Derry Corner, where the iconic message, "You are now entering Free Derry," has become a symbol recognized around the world. If you really want to understand the area's history, I highly recommend visiting the Museum of Free Derry. It provides moving personal stories and explains the events surrounding Bloody Sunday in 1972, when 14 unarmed civil rights protesters lost their lives. Where to eat in Derry. If you're ready for lunch, Derry has some fantastic options. Pike and Palms is a local favorite for gourmet burgers and loaded fries. For traditional Irish food, you'll find several excellent pubs serving hearty stews, seafood chowder, and fresh soda bread. And if you're craving coffee and homemade cake, there are plenty of independent cafes tucked throughout the city center. Now it's time to head back into the Republic of Ireland. One thing you'll notice almost immediately is that the roads become a little quieter, the villages become smaller, and the mountains become bigger. And the scenery becomes even more dramatic. Donegal has always felt a little different from the rest of Ireland. It's remote and rugged, and that's exactly why people love it. Our first stop is Wild Ireland. If you're traveling with kids, this might end up being everyone's favorite stop. Instead of a traditional zoo, Wild Ireland is a wildlife sanctuary dedicated to animals that once lived across Ireland. Here you'll see rescued brown bears, wolves, lynx, wild boar, and several native species that disappeared from Ireland centuries ago. The habitats are beautifully designed and focus is on conservation. One of the coolest moments is hearing the wolves howl across the park. Kids love the elevated viewing platforms, while adults usually appreciate learning about Ireland's lost wildlife and the conservation work happening today. I thoroughly enjoyed the ferrets and the rats because I actually had pet ferrets and pet rats at one point, so I just loved seeing those things. I know I can see those here, but I liked that, and I did enjoy the bears as well. On spending at least 2 or 3 hours here, it's definitely worth it. The kids loved it. Great stop if you have kids. Next, let's head to one of the most photogenic places in all of Donegal, Fanad Head Lighthouse. Standing proudly above crashing Atlantic waves since 1817, this lighthouse guards the entrance to Lough Swilly and offers spectacular views in every direction. Take the guided tour if it's available. You'll climb the tower, learn about the lives of lighthouse keepers, and enjoy panoramic views stretching across the coastline. Even if you skip the tour, simply walking around is worth the drive. From there, continue north to Malin Head, the northernmost point of mainland Ireland. If it feels wild, that's because it is. The Atlantic Ocean crashes into towering cliffs, while seabirds circle overhead, and strong winds remind you just how exposed the coastline really is. Movie fans may recognize parts of Malin Head from Star Wars: The Last Jedi, but you certainly don't need to be a fan to appreciate the incredible scenery. Look for Banba's Crown, an old lookout tower that now overlooks one of the most dramatic coastlines in the country. On clear days, you can watch enormous waves crashing against the rocks below. During certain times of year, you might even spot dolphins, seals, basking sharks, or whales offshore. If you've made it this far, you've already seen some of the most beautiful places on the island of Ireland. But in my opinion, we've saved one of the absolute best for last. When people think of dramatic Irish cliffs, they usually picture the cliffs of Moher. They're incredible, but if you ask me, Slieve League is one of Ireland's best kept secrets. Rising nearly 2,000 feet above the Atlantic Ocean, these cliffs are almost 3 times higher than the cliffs of Moher, and somehow they still receive only a fraction of the visitors. That means fewer crowds, easier parking, and a much quieter experience. You have a couple of options once you arrive. If you're looking for an easy visit, take the shuttle or walk up to the main viewing area. The views are spectacular and suitable for almost everyone. If you're an experienced hiker, the Pilgrim's Path offers breathtaking scenery as you climb higher along the cliffs. And then there's One Man's Pass. Despite the name, it's exactly what it sounds like, a very narrow ridge with steep drops on both sides. If you're uncomfortable with heights, skip this. Seriously, the main viewpoints are more than enough to leave you speechless. And that's a wrap on Ireland, at least for now. From the towering cliffs of Moher and winding wild Atlantic Way, to ancient castles, hidden beaches, cozy pubs, and tiny villages that somehow still your heart, Ireland has a way of making every day feel like an adventure. If you're planning your own trip, I hope this guide helps you make the most of it. And if you've already been, let everyone know your favorite spot down in the comments. You might just help someone else discover a place they would have missed. If you enjoyed this guide, don't forget to subscribe because we have a lot more coming. We'll be exploring more of Ireland, diving into its hidden gems and darker history, plus road trips, national parks, and unforgettable destinations all over. So if you love finding places that are worth the detour, you're in the right place. Thanks so much for watching, safe travels, and I'll see you on the next adventure.